Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. We return to our top story about the SCO summit and India's position. Joining me is Ambassador Manjeev Puri, former senior diplomat. Ambassador Puri was also part of India's diplomatic outreach after Operation Sindoor. Good evening and welcome, sir. Given that one of the fundamental principles of SCO is to maintain peace, security and stability in the region, how do you read its sheer inability to acknowledge the most heinous terror attack in the region in recent times?
Absolutely. Look, SCO's fundamental thing, other than the protocol thing which you said, is about it being a good, strong front against terrorism and extremism. And so, therefore, when this happens, there is every reason for us to be unhappy. And I have no doubt on the fact that the Honorable Raksha Mantri had no choice. And he did absolutely the right thing. How did it come about? Look, SCO consists of 10 countries. The Chinese are the host. They are by far the most predominant player in this game. Pakistan is their ally. I have no doubt that there would have been these kind of backroom machinations. But Shubhendu, if I may say so, we should have been more alert. We should have also talked to other countries, Russia in particular, Kazakhstan and several other countries there. And, let me say, in hindsight, everybody is wiser. And maybe, getting the defense minister to be there. It makes a point very strongly that this organization, which believes in everyone coming together, is not able to do it on its core mandate of terrorism and leaving out the most heinous of acts which the whole world has acknowledged. The UNSC has passed a resolution on that. Very sad. But, somewhere along the line, we also need to get much sharper, especially because an SCO summit is planned for later in this particular year.
Right. Ambassador Puri, building international consensus on the issue of terrorism was also a goal of the India's diplomatic outreach after Operation Sindoor, which you were also a part of. How was your experience and how do you see the developments at SCO from what you learned during your own interactions?
So, Shubhendu, let me say that on terrorism, the countries that I was part of the delegation, 5 countries, Russia, Slovenia, Latvia, Greece and Spain. All these countries are or will be members of the UN Security Council along the same time that Pakistan is a member of the Security Council. That was a very important element of the outreach for those who matter in a de jure sense of the thing. Look, there is general agreement in the world and a very strong agreement that terrorism should have no place. Let me quote to you what a very senior interlocutor from one of these countries said to us. Terrorism is the cancer of the modern society, modern world, and it should have absolutely no place. SCO coming around on it, I really must say I dislike it. I don't like the idea. I think the Chinese are not aware of this particular thing. They themselves have suffered from terrorism. They themselves were responsible for bringing about this body where terrorism was a major source of it. And therefore, Pakistan needed by all these countries actually to have been told, look, we understand that, you have also suffered terrorism, but let's also understand that the biggest attack, the most heinous attack, which sought to, disrupt the societal fabric of one of our esteemed members, this cannot not be mentioned and mentioned in a proper manner. After all, even the Security Council has taken cognizance of it. This point needs to be, hammered home. We need to do some kind of action vis-a-vis both the Chinese, the Russians, the Kazakhs and many of the others who are part of the SCO.
And SCO is, we understand, one of the few multilateral platforms, especially in the region where both India and Pakistan are members. And given the new low in the relations, how does it augur for the grouping as a whole?
Look, in my understanding, this grouping was certainly enriched when it included India. It was a 5-country grouping. And when it included India, the Chinese and the Russians by themselves would have seen you're getting another major country, a country going places into it. Well, part of the game in all of this is that Pakistan needs to be accommodated, and so they also support it. So right from the very beginning, there has been this particular issue, but the various people, earlier it was the Russians who were major players, now since the Ukraine war, it's the Chinese who are major players. They've handled this well, but it was particularly important that terrorism should have been properly flagged. The attack in Pahalgam should have been squarely mentioned in that. So I want to say that obviously the Raksha Mantri had no choice, and he did it very well. In his own speech, he was very clear, forthright, and absolutely unequivocal, and everybody listened with rapt attention. But it's also very important that in documentation this is made clear and brought out forcefully. The summit will be held in China later this year, and we need a degree of stepped up interaction with the Chinese, I believe, more than anyone else, but also the Russian and the others, because it can't be a case that, you not just pay lip service, you do a little bit, you do much more than that. In the core mandate of this particular group, as far as Pakistan is concerned, this certainly needs to be, in a sense, checked. And the fact that the organization is squarely against terrorism, which means that terrorist acts, their perpetrators, etc., should be clearly mentioned.
If we reflect on some of the key statements by Defence Minister, he says peace and prosperity cannot coexist with terrorism. Also flags weapons of mass destruction in the hands of non-state actors could be disastrous.
No, absolutely. The Raksha Mantri made all the points which are part of not just our new normal, but our policy on the question of terrorism, the handling of weapons of mass destruction. Each and every one of them was forcefully made, pointedly made. And let me say this to you, these are not new to this country. All these countries know what is our position. They willingly wanted India to be a member of the SCO. And each of these countries have their own experiences with terrorism. Do any of them want it? Let me tell you the case of the Chinese. The Chinese have had their own issues. We may have issues with what they define as terrorism. They've had their own issues with terrorism and are extremely strong, indeed brutal, with the way they deal with it. And so, therefore, there should be absolutely no question about it. This organization must live up to its mandate, where terrorism and extremism are issues which are pointed in its mandate, and it must be strong for all its members on this particular side.
And Ambassador Puri, finally, given that a circumstance like what happened at the SCO could present itself to India again in other platforms, the need for continuously proactively engaging with the international community on the issue of terrorism, Pak-sponsored terrorism, would be absolutely vital for India.
Absolutely, Shubhendu. In fact, that was the main reason, isn't it, for the multi-party delegation going across to 32 countries. Almost all of them are countries which are either currently serving on the Security Council or will be serving next year, the same time when Pakistan is serving there. So, this one aspect, of course, was the proactive aspect. We want to draw the country's attention, the world's attention, to this heinous crime, the cancer of the modern world, terrorism, and to tell them that there should be absolutely no place for terrorism in our society. The other was alerting all the countries who are serving on the Security Council, not just the permanent members, all the non-permanent members, that be very mindful that terrorism is something that you need to be very careful of, and you need to be careful of misadventures which Pakistan might wish to plan or play up simply because it happens to be a member, and you are also members there. And in a sense, there are 10 non-permanent members. There are some trade-offs that take place, but we made it very crystal clear. It was well received by them. Let me make the point to you why many of these things are well received. Because for many of these countries, India is a country of consequence. India is a country of interest. So what India says and says, they certainly internalize. And then, even when they hear Pakistan sitting on the same table making its point, they do, and all countries are very, very, very rooted in their own national interest. They would play this off against, what is India, what does it stand for, not just terrorism, but as the fourth largest economy in the world, what does it mean? And so therefore, you are absolutely spot on. We need to continue our diplomatic efforts. They are absolutely important because this question of keeping the global gaze on terrorism is something that is absolutely important. And we need to make it a proactive element of what we are doing. We are doing our bit, but also keeping the global gaze on it extremely important.
Ambassador Manjeev Puri, many thanks for joining us on the News Hour and sharing your perspective.